This is the Purple Team podcast. I'm Eliza-May Austin, and I'm joined today by Matthew Waddell, the head of DFIR at MAD Security in Alabama. Just a note, if you hear this sound, that just means that something is wrong with the editing. I'm here today with Matthew Waddell of MAD Security in Alabama. I've never been to Alabama. What's it like over there at the moment?
Hot and humid.
Sounds great.
About to rain.
So you're the lead DFIR, so Digital Forensics and Incident Response Director at MAD Security. So this podcast is all about purple teaming. So what's your interest in purple teaming just generally?
My interest in purple teaming is that because I've been doing this for about 20 years, I've been on every aspect of computer security, from writing policies and procedures to digital forensics to managing a SOC, directing a SOC, handling incident response. I don't see it as individual teams. I feel that it is a combination, and that if we start to segregate ourselves and say, I do red team task, or I do blue team task, or I'm white hat, or I'm black hat, then we start to get a sort of a segment. It's like sort of that classic, that's not my job category for what we should be doing. So I feel that the purple teaming is a good example, because it just shows it's just a combination of like rainbow teaming, but that just doesn't flow off the tongue quite as easily, does it?
Not as fancy, is it? No, I think you're right, and I think it's really healthy for anyone's career in cybersecurity to understand the opposition. And when I say opposition, I mean like almost the opposite to your job. So for someone that is a defender to understand what the offense is and vice versa. And I think there's a lot of we call it banter in the UK around that, where red teamers, think blue teamers aren't really cool, and blue teamers think red teamers are like arrogant. And there's a lot of mishmash when it comes to culture. I mean, it's all part of the fun. But it does create segregation there. Yeah.
Here in the US. I'm sorry. There's a delay in our talk.
Yeah.
I agree. That happens here in the US as well. I see the same thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think that purple teaming definitely brings it together. So from my perspective, what we do at my company, we've got our own methodology around purple teaming. It's pretty robust and can be quite lengthy. So we do threat intelligence gathering on the target and on the attacker, attacker being their most likely adversaries out in the world. And then we apply that to a penetration test, and then we fix and remediate, and then we do another penetration test to prove that we've remediated it. So to me, that's what purple teaming is, because we're completely engaged in the whole process with all those people, the defense and offense, together in the same room or on the same call. And it can take a few weeks, but what's your idea of purple teaming? Because I'm conscious that a lot of people have different views on what it actually entails.
That's a good question. I agree with the original thought that the purple team is a combination of the red and the blue, but I like your bring in of open source intelligence to identify a particular type of attacker involved. Like a bank would have one type of attacker that would be looking to penetrate their network, blocking that particular attack. The red team pen test would be based around that particular attack. But say a social media site or someone's personal computer would have a different sort of attacker with a different objective. And so the purple team has to be responsive to that. You can tailor your response to those, but know that that's just hitting the top of the bell curve, and that you were looking for a statistical anomaly, that a bank would have someone's trying to breach it to gain money access, and not necessarily credentials for someone's Facebook page or blackmail usage and such. Has a more targeted top of the bell curve approach to a statistical anomalous approach to cybersecurity, would be my opinion.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I suppose the core of it is understanding the sort of threat profile of one industry to another. So, a manufacturing company that manufactures pharmaceuticals is going to have a vastly different sort of attacker profile that is rooting for them than an e-commerce site, for example. So yeah, I think that you've got to apply that, because if every company starts defending against the same thing, it's a blanket statement, so to speak, and they're going to be defending against things that are never going to happen to them and leaving things open that most likely will. Um, yeah, so in terms of
Exactly.
your history, so you've got a lot of experience in critical national infrastructure, and that to me is really exciting. I know you've worked in Iraq and Afghanistan before, and the energy sector. So would you say
Yes.
that critical national infrastructure is kind of behind the times when it comes to cybersecurity? And I mean, I do. I personally think that they are not. I don't really know
Yes.
much about the military. And would you do you think it's possible that they'd ever be able to incorporate purple teaming in such an old-fashioned environment?
The one being the critical infrastructure. We're talking the power grid, the stoplights, the water, sewage, even the critical parts of keeping day-to-day activity happening in a normal basis is most definitely behind the times. These are built on SCADA, SCADA
Yeah.
technology, where it is not supposed to be connected to the internet, but we all know that we operate under three general principles. I seek pleasure, I avoid pain, and I do energy conservation. A computer person, be it security or otherwise, operates under that energy conservation, and they're going to go, I have to get up and I have to go and physically log into this thing when I can go buy a $50 network card, put it in, connect it, and boom, now I've just saved myself an entire trip in, not thinking of the security aspect of it. And this has happened all over the place. And because there was no really good policy or policy enforcement or ability to say, no, this is bad security, just bad information
Mm.
out there for the engineers, for the people working on these. And there is now, but I'm no longer in the energy sector, are tracking these down, looking for those rogue access points of people that are just trying to do their job better, easier, with less hassle, not understanding the security implications of it. The second question you asked was about the military, which I think is actually more ahead of the times, and that they're 2 or 3 generational jumps ahead of us in ways that I can't possibly say on a public broadcast as to what their capabilities are. Today being May 27th, and all of us in the world being in that COVID economic issue, it appears to be prerequisite watch the right hand while the left hand does something level of counter OPSEC stuff. But I'm not in that industry, so I can't really speak on it. But there have been more attacks, more hacks, and more incidents happening right now. I work in a SOC as a service, and we are just getting slammed all over the place because you have so many people sitting at home, told to stay at home. And what are they going to do? They're going to explore networks and move around and compromise things and scan things and make us do our job and such, as the opposite side of that, the response side. So, but the military does appear to be, from my inside now, the curve from what business development is, from the fact that they have both COTS and GOTS, commercial off-the-shelf systems, and government off-the-shelf systems. And the government off-the-shelf systems have capabilities and technology built into them that are just not available to the public. Infrastructures that are put in place so that the systems can talk to one another cleanly, because they come at it from a security first mindset. I mean, from the very basic soldier is taught security, and it's drilled into them to the point to where that is how their default action is. So the military definitely has a step up on it. So that would be the flip side of the critical national infrastructure, the thing that they are trying to protect, that was made from a just make it work and then we'll secure it later standpoint. So these two are very polar opposites to each other. So that's why I answered your question that way.
No, That's an awesome answer. And
Well,
I
thank you.
realize I had a really convoluted question there where I asked like several things in one
That's all right.
go. Sorry about that. Too
If
much
you asked
comedy.
a quick, easy question, it would just be, yes, you're correct. And you don't want to do those in a podcast. You want to ask in-depth thinking questions that make you go, wow, I never really thought about that. So, I mean, for your formed list of questions, whether you edit this out or not, is make the questions involved answers, really
Yeah,
thinking like someone in an industry that understands a specific thing will have a unique perspective on it. So that's
absolutely.
that
And
was
that's
free.
what I want to take
No
advantage
charge.
of on this.
No charge for that one.
You're gonna send me an invoice now, aren't you, for like a day rate?
Absolutely not.
Um,
Absolutely not.
so it said on you, I had a nosy at LinkedIn profile before we jumped on this call. And it says you've been in the digital sector since 1999. For a start, you don't look old enough. And secondly,
Thanks.
how have you seen, like, I know that technology has progressed beyond belief since that time, but like from a cyber security perspective, what's been like the most profound moments for you in your career since the late 90s in terms of
Wow.
cybersecurity?
That's a good question. Starting off, when I was in the year 2000, the distant future, the year 2000, I started off at NASA, and there was no SIM. It was TCP dump raw datas, doing our best to parse it and look through to find attackers and such. So I think that SIM technology has really come a long way as to where I can talk to my team and not even have to drop to the command line or show them TCP dump traffic, because the SIM is doing a lot of translation for them.
This podcast is sponsored by thatsecurity.company, specialists in purple teaming and security operations center development.
So that I can get someone that doesn't have 20 years of experience, that only has 1 year, 2 years of experience, and put them eyes on glass and have them look at data and be able to get some sort of a sense of translation from it, because the SIM will give them that information, pulling from a database and tracking, going, these are the CVE numbers and such of what this attack is, and kind of not making it dumb, because you really have to have a human there and not a monkey to push the keys. Mm-hmm. You have to have someone to translate it, but the SIM is doing a lot of the grunt work that in my history didn't grow up with. I'm very fortunate to have a SIM in front of me now. And in fact, I'm suffering from the fact that the SIM has too many buttons, too many alarms, too many things that it's telling me about, which creates a bit of a sensory overload. And I've seen this across that a lot of companies have that, where they have too many alarms, too much data coming in. And it's sort of as if you were in a room and there were 20 different radios going at the same time, and they're all playing different music and news and weather broadcasts and everything. You get to where you just become desensitized to it.
It's alert fatigue, isn't it?
Oh yes, most certainly. And it's just ongoing, because every time we tune one down, it's like another 2 radios pop up in its place. So it is just a constant tuning environment for that. But definitely a SIM is the one piece of technology I've seen come about in the past 20 years that really was a game changer. So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, especially the way that you've sort of described it as being sort of the grunt, the one that does the sort of mowing the lawn so we can enjoy the garden kind of thing.
Yeah.
Terrible terminology. I don't know why I use that. So
that's okay. Edit that part out. Edit that one out.
A couple of questions. One, if you could give one security tip, just one, the one thing that comes to mind, it doesn't matter what it is, it doesn't matter if it's a specific thing in the terminal or just a way of working or whatever, one security tip to the world to make the world a better place, what would it be? I'm really sorry about my dog.
Change your password.
Change your password. Yeah, good one.
Yeah. Don't use the same password across platforms if you just want to salt it, basically. Also, we've kind of have this, We've unfortunately come to the point to where we have made passwords easier for computers to guess and harder for people to remember. If I use capital PASSW, the letter 0 ORD or RD as my password, it's difficult for me to remember, but it's easy for a computer to do a computational and say 8 characters, start with this, and go through and do a brute force on it. And it will take a limited amount of time. And people think, well, I'm not a person that they're interested in. You know, it's just my little personal computer. Why would anyone attack me? What they don't understand is that they are just one of many. They're like just another zombie in the horde of coming out towards whomever, being used. So they don't necessarily care about you specifically, but they will use whatever weak link. And the password is the keys. Ironically, a password that is all lowercase, but a series of words such as horse goes to water, all put together, is infinitely more difficult than, because of its complexity, because of its length. I gotta go change my password now, by the way. So, but because of that. So, but yeah, but because that's seriously not my password. Because the complexity of it being for a computer, it doesn't care if it's uppercase, lowercase, a number or a character, because it just says 26 letters capitalized, 26 letters lowercase, X number of possibilities for special characters, and start running through this computation. First one is going to be capital letter. Second one's going to be lowercase, 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 lowercase. Okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. And it will do that forever until it gets something. But a combination of just words, an easy to remember phrase. You still remember what my password is, don't you? Do you?
A horse goes to drink water. No.
Yeah, it was close. It was pretty close, but I remember it. Horse goes to water. And that's easy for me to remember, but more difficult for the computer to guess just because of its length. Come on, world, change your password. That's the main way people are getting in, is through passwords.
Oh, brilliant tip.
And if you want to salt your password, actually, let me elaborate on that. If you want to salt your password, you go horse goes to water PayPal, horse goes to water Amazon, horse goes to water Gmail, you know. And those are your salted different passwords that you know. And salt means that when it's created into a hash, that hash is completely different than any other hash, even if it just had A for Amazon instead of, or P for PayPal.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I would say a password manager. Like, if people just invested in password managers, and if younger people taught older people how to use them, and if children were taught at school the importance of a password manager, just like the importance of, I don't know, carrying your bag to school with your kit in it, I think that would be an absolute game changer. But
what happens if they get your password manager?
Well, if you have a really secure passphrase, I mean, it's encrypted, so you can have two-factor authentication. So if some people do,
all of these are defeatable. No, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm enhancing on that. I use a password manager because I have about 60 different passwords and I can't possibly remember them. I can't use my algorithm that I just told you, several words. Some of them force me to use complex characters and uppercase and lowercase and numbers and such. So I do use a password manager, and I use. I think
for the everyday person, it's a good thing to invest in. It's a good thing to teach as well, to be equipped to have a password manager, and it's just be part of everyday life, like having a wallet for your money. I think it should be taught in school. I think it's just basic.
Good security hygiene. You must be this tall in order to use the internet, kind of.
I'd be out because I'm a midget. So last question, and then we're done. So what did you want to be when you grew up, and how does your role now compare? 2 questions.
That's a tough one. I want to answer it honestly, but I'm not sure I want to.
I wanted to be
Spider-Man when I grew up. I wanted to be Spider-Man because he kind of swooped in, saved the day, but the Spider-Man very much has that, like, I'm just a little guy, I'm just here to, I'm nothing special, but here, I saved your life and such. That
Underdog.
hero complex. Yeah, like Wonder Dog. And I wanted to be Spider-Man though, and I have difficulty with that word hero, like right now in the world, and this is my pet peeve, like they're calling the people at the supermarket heroes, and I disagree. I think that I've seen people that should have been heroes that were not acknowledged on that, and people that are acknowledged to be heroes that were just piece of craps the rest of the time, and it was just that single act. So, but you understand the hero complex, that I save the day level of thinking, and I get that sometimes in my job now. I act as SOC as a service, in that we have clients that cannot afford to have their own SOC. They have a network guy. In some cases, it's like a small town that has a guy that does the network, and he realizes that security is outside of his pay grade, so he hires us to manage the security. We put our network sensors in, we monitor alerts and tell him, hey, we see these two computers talking, we see this incident going on and such, and it takes a load off from him. So I get a sense of that hero complex, even though I do not want to label myself as a hero for sending an email or making a phone call, but it does answer that Matthew stepped in and did something nice today, save that guy because he was about to get hacked. It answers that. So without definitely not calling myself a hero, but it answers that complex inside of needing to be needed. So
no,
there we
I
go.
get
Spider-Man.
it. I don't think you need to justify it. I think a lot of people go into industries like cybersecurity because they want to do some good. And that's essentially what you're saying. And although you're not swinging off buildings and rescuing falling women, I mean, I have no idea what you do on a weekend, but
that is my weekend job. It is my. I have a mask and a cape, but they don't call me a hero. So.
Well, I really enjoyed having you on the podcast today, and I hope you come back at some point, and I hope to see you again sometime. I hope to meet you sometime. But that's it. It's a short one. That's it.
I enjoyed it as well. So thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
So that was it from the Purple Team podcast. I hope you listen next time.